Nathaniel Sterling stood at the window of his office on the top floor of Sterling Enterprises. At 42, he had everything money could buy. His company was worth billions. He lived in a mansion that looked like a castle. People treated him like a king. But something was missing, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his life wasn't complete. "Mr. Sterling, your car is ready," his assistant said through the intercom. "The groundbreaking ceremony at the estate starts in an hour." He grabbed his jacket and headed to the elevator. Another day, another photo opportunity. The press loved to show him cutting ribbons and shaking hands. Today, he was opening a new garden at his family estate, something his PR team said would make him look more human. The drive to Sterling Manor took 30 minutes. As they pulled up to the iron gates, memories hit him hard. This was where he grew up, where he fell in love for the first and only time, where he made the biggest mistake of his life. "We've set up the ceremony by the new fountain," his PR manager said, rushing to meet him. "The press is already here." But Nathaniel wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on something else. 4 boys, maybe 9 or 10 years old, playing soccer on the lawn. 4 identical faces, 4 sets of dark curly hair, 4 pairs of green eyes that looked exactly like his own. His heart stopped. The world tilted sideways. Those boys, they were mirror images of him at that age. "Who are they?" he demanded, grabbing his PR manager's arm. "Oh, those are Elena's boys, the gardener's daughter. She works here now, just like her father used to." Elena. The name hit him like a punch to the gut. Elena Ruiz, the girl he loved. The girl he left behind 10 years ago when his father threatened to destroy her family if he didn't end things. "Get everyone out," he ordered. "Cancel the ceremony." "But sir, the press—" "I said get them out, all of them." His voice boomed across the grounds. The boys stopped playing and looked his way. One of them waved, a friendly smile on his face, not knowing he was waving at his father. Nathaniel felt sick. 10 years. 10 years had passed since he walked away from Elena. The math wasn't hard to figure out. He marched across the lawn, his expensive shoes sinking into the grass. The boys watched him coming, their smiles fading as they sensed his anger. "Where is your mother?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "In the greenhouse," one of them answered. They all had the same face, but this one had a small scar above his eyebrow. "She's planting the new roses for the ceremony." The greenhouse, where he and Elena had shared their first kiss, where they had made plans and promises, where everything had fallen apart. She was kneeling in the dirt when he walked. Her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exactly the same, yet completely different. The teenage girl he remembered had become a woman. Elena. She froze at the sound of his voice. Slowly, she stood up and turned around. Her eyes were hard, nothing like the soft, loving gaze. He remembered. "I wondered how long it would take you to notice them," she said quietly. "Are they mine?" "Yes." One word. So simple. So devastating. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elena laughed, but there was no joy in it. "I did tell you, Nathaniel. I wrote letters, I called. I begged your father to let me speak to you, but he made sure. You never got the messages. He said you were too important now for someone like me." "My father?" The room spun. His father had died 2 years ago, taking his secrets to the grave. "He knew? He knew everything. He paid me to go away, to never contact you again. I took the money because I had 4 babies to feed and no one else to help me, but I wouldn't. Leave town, this place was my home too." Nathaniel sank onto a wooden bench, his legs too weak to hold him. 4 sons. He had 4 sons he never knew about. While he was building his empire, Elena was raising their children alone. "What are their names?" His voice cracked. "Daniel is the oldest by 2 minutes. He has the scar from falling out of a tree. Then came Michael, he's the quiet one. Lucas is 3rd, he wants to be a doctor. And Anthony is the baby of the family, always making everyone laugh." Each name was like an arrow to his heart. These boys had lived and grown and become people without him. They had personalities, dreams, stories he knew nothing about. "They're beautiful boys," he whispered. "They are, no thanks to you." The bitterness in her voice made him flinch. "Eleanor, if I had known—" "You would have what?" "Swooped in with your money. Made everything better." "It's too late for that, Nathaniel. 10 years too late. She pulled off her gardening gloves and threw them aside. "The boys don't know about you. To them, their father was a man who died before they were born. That's the story I told them because it was easier than the truth. The truth that I abandoned you, that I chose money and power over love." "No," she said, her voice sharp. "The truth that you were a coward who let your father control your life. The truth that you never fought for us." Through the greenhouse windows, he could see the boys still playing on the lawn. They were laughing, carefree, unaware that their world was about to change forever. "I want to know them," he said. "You don't." "Have that right. They're my sons, Elena shot back. "I'm the one who carried them for 9 months. I'm the one who worked 3 jobs to feed them. I'm the one who held them when they cried, who taught them to walk and talk, who loved them every single day of their lives. You're nothing to them but DNA." Each word was true and each word hurt, but Nathaniel had lost too much already. He couldn't lose them again. "I'll give you anything you want," he said. "Money, a house, whatever you need. Just let me be part of their lives." Elena's eyes filled with tears of anger. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. It never was. This is about 4 little boys who have never wondered about their father because they thought he was dead. How do you think they'll feel when they learn the truth? That their father was alive all this time, living in a mansion while they shared bunk beds in a tiny apartment?" The truth of her words hit him hard. He had spent 10 years building walls around his heart, telling himself that leaving Elena was the right thing to do. Now those walls were crumbling, and the pain was unbearable. Outside, one of the boys scored a goal, and they all cheered. The sound carried through the greenhouse, a reminder of all the moments he had missed. "Please," he whispered, "please give me a chance to make this right." Elena looked at him for a long moment, studying his face. The face she had once loved, the face her sons wore. "I'll think about it," she finally said. "But not for you. For them. Because someday they might want to know where they came from. But if I let you into their lives, it has to be on my terms. And if you hurt them, if you disappear again—" "I won't," he promised. "I've lost too much time already." She nodded slowly, then picked up her gardening tools. "Go home, Nathaniel. I'll contact you when I've decided what to do." He wanted to argue, to demand more, but he knew he had no right. He had given up that right 10 years ago. As he walked back to his car, he passed the boys again. They had stopped playing and were watching him curiously. "Are you the man who owns this place?" one of them asked. "Michael," he remembered. "The quiet one." "Yes," he managed to say. "Yes, I am." "Cool," the boy replied with a smile. His smile. "Mom says it's like a castle." "It is," Nathaniel said, his heart breaking. Maybe someday you can see inside." He got in his car and ordered the driver to take him home. But home didn't feel like home anymore. Not when his sons were living somewhere else, calling another place home, living a life he knew nothing about. For the first time in 10 years, Nathaniel Sterling, the man who had everything, realized just how much he had lost. Elena watched Nathaniel's car disappear through the gates, her hands shaking. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times over the years, but nothing could have prepared her for seeing him face to face again. "Mom, who was that man?" Lucas asked, running up to her. Her little doctor, always full of questions. "Just the owner of the estate," she said, forcing a smile. "Why don't you boys go wash up? It's almost dinner time." The boys raced off, their footsteps echoing across the garden. Eleanor walked slowly to their small house at the edge of the property. The house where she had grown up, where her father had lived until his death last year. It wasn't much, but it was home. She started making dinner, her mind racing. Nathaniel knew. After all these years of keeping the secret, of protecting her boys, everything was about to change. She thought about all the times she had tried to tell him, the letters she had written, the phone calls she had made. His father had blocked every attempt. The memory of Richard Sterling's visit still made her blood boil. He had come to her tiny apartment, looked at her 4 beautiful baby boys, and pulled out his checkbook. "Name your price," he had said. "But you have to leave town. Nathaniel is about to merge with Robertson Industries. He can't have any distractions." "These aren't distractions," she had told him. "They're your grandchildren. My son needs to focus on his future. These complications would only hold him back." She had taken his money, but not his conditions. The boys needed food, clothes, medical care, but she wouldn't leave the only home they knew. Now, watching her sons eat dinner, she wondered if she had made the right choice. Daniel was telling a story about a goal he scored, his hands moving wildly as he spoke. Michael listened quietly, smiling at his brother's excitement. Lucas was reading a book under the table, and Anthony was trying to build a tower with his. "Green beans. Mom, can we go see inside the big house someday?" Anthony asked, his green beans forgotten. Elena's heart squeezed. Those were Nathaniel's eyes looking up at her, full of hope and curiosity. "Maybe someday, baby, we'll see." After dinner, after baths and bedtime stories, after kissing 4 foreheads and turning out 4 lights, Elena sat at her small kitchen table and cried. She cried for the young girl she had been, so in love and full of dreams. She cried for her boys who deserved to know their father. She cried for Nathaniel, who had missed so much. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I need to see you tomorrow, please. N." Of course he had gotten her number. He probably had her whole life history by now. That's what money could buy. She typed back, "The boys have school until 3. Meet me at Joe's." Diner at 10. Joe's Diner was where she worked her morning shift. At least there she would feel on solid ground. The next morning, Elena tied on her waitress apron and tried to calm her nerves. When Nathaniel walked in at exactly 10, every head turned. He looked out of place in his expensive suit, like a peacock, in a chicken coop. "Table in the back," she said shortly, leading him to a quiet corner. He sat down, looking uncomfortable on the cracked vinyl seat. "You work here?" "One of 3 jobs." "Coffee?" He nodded, and she poured him a cup. Simple tasks, to steady her hands. "I spent all night reading about them," he said quietly. "Looking at property records, school registrations, 4 boys, quadruplets, born at St. Mary's Hospital. You named them all after your uncles." "Is that what your private investigators told?" "You? Elena, please, I'm trying to understand." She set the coffee pot down harder than necessary. "Understand what?" "That I was 17 and scared, that your father told me you wanted nothing to do with us, that I had to figure out how to be a mother to 4 babies while you were off becoming a billionaire. I would have helped if I had." "Don't lower your voice," she hissed. "Half the people in here work at the estate. They can't know about this, not yet." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache. "What do you want me to do? Tell me how to fix this." "You can't fix this, Nathaniel. You can't buy back 10 years. The boys have a life, a routine. They're happy. Without a father. Because of your choices," he flinched. "My father made your choices for you," she finished, "and you let him. You were so eager to prove yourself to be the son he wanted that you never questioned him. Did you ever even try to contact me after that day?" The silence was answer enough. "I have to get back to work," she said, straightening up. "Other customers need coffee too." "Wait." He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my private number. Call me when you're ready to talk about how we tell them." "If," she corrected, "if we tell them." His green eyes, the same ones she saw every day in her sons' faces, filled with pain. "They're my children, too, Elena. I have a right to know them. Rights." She laughed bitterly. "Rights are earned, Nathaniel. Through love, through showing up, through putting someone else's needs before your own. You haven't earned anything yet." She walked away, moving between tables with practiced ease, refilling coffee cups and taking orders. But she could feel his eyes on her, watching her every move. When he finally left, he placed a $100 bill under his untouched coffee cup. She wanted to run after him, to throw his money back in his face. Instead, she pocketed it. Her boys needed new shoes for school. That night, she looked at old photos while the boys slept. Pictures of 4 tiny babies in the hospital, so small they had to stay in incubators. Pictures of their first steps, first words, first day of school. A whole album of memories that Nathaniel had missed. Her phone buzzed again. "They have my smile and your strength. I see it now." N. She looked at the business card he had given her, his private number written in strong, confident strokes, the same handwriting that had once written her love letters. "Give me time," she texted back. "This isn't just about us anymore." His reply came instantly. "I'll wait as long as it takes. Just don't shut me out again." Eleanor closed the photo album and went to check on her boys. They were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world was about to change. Daniel and Michael shared one bunk bed, Lucas and Anthony the other. Their room was small, but filled with love. Would they want for more once they knew their father was one of the richest men in the city? She kissed each sleeping face, remembering how Nathaniel had looked at them today, like they were miracles, like they were treasures he had just discovered, because that's what they were. Her treasures, her miracles, her reason for everything, and now she had to decide if she was ready to share them. Nathaniel couldn't focus on work. Every time he tried to read a contract or attend a meeting, his mind wandered to 4 identical faces playing soccer on his lawn. His sons. The word still felt strange in his mouth. "Cancel my appointments for the week," he told his secretary. "Family emergency." He drove to his father's old house, now empty except for the memories. The study looked exactly the same. Dark wood panels, leather chairs, and his father's presence still lingering in every corner. He started opening drawers, searching. His father kept everything. There had to be proof somewhere of what Elena said, in E. The bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. He found it. A thick folder labeled Rui's situation. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were all of Elena's letters, never delivered. Hospital bills from when the boys were born. Private investigator reports tracking their lives. Photos taken from a distance. Elena pushing a stroller with 4 babies. The boys on their first day of school, birthday parties he had missed. The last paper made him sick. A copy of a check for $50,000 made out to Elena Ruiz. Payment for her silence. His father's neat handwriting in the memo line. Final settlement. His phone rang. Elena's number. "The boys are asking about you," she said, without greeting. "They want to know why the man who owns the big house was looking at them so strangely. What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet. But they're smart, Nathaniel. They notice things, and they've started asking questions about their father." He sat in his father's chair, surrounded by proof of a decade of lies. "I found the letters you wrote, all of them. My father kept everything." Elena was quiet for a moment. "Did you read them?" "Yes." His voice cracked. "Elena, I'm so sorry. If I had known..." "But you didn't know, because you trusted him more than you trusted me." The truth hurt, but he couldn't deny it. "I was young and stupid. I thought I was doing the right thing." "For who? For you? For your company?" "I thought..." He stopped, really thinking about it for the first time. "I thought I was protecting you. My father said he would destroy your family, get your father fired, make sure you never found work in this town again. So you left without a word. Without even saying goodbye. It was the biggest mistake of my life." More silence. He could hear voices in the background. Children laughing, the TV playing cartoons. "The boys have a basketball game this Saturday," Elena finally said, "at the community center. If you want to come watch just to see them play." His heart leaped. "What time?" 10 in the morning. "But Nathaniel, you have to sit in the back. Don't try to talk to them. Don't make a scene. Just watch. I'll be there, I promise." Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Nathaniel arrived at the community center early, dressed in jeans and a plain shirt instead of his usual suits. He sat in the last row of bleachers, trying to blend in with the other parents. The boys ran onto the court in matching blue jerseys. They played on the same team, moving together like they could read each other's minds. Daniel was aggressive, driving to the basket. Michael played smart, always finding the open man. Lucas calculated each shot carefully. And Anthony brought energy, his smile lighting up the gym. "Sterling boys," the coach called out. "Good hustle, Sterling boys." His boys. Wearing his name without even knowing it, Eleanor sat a few rows ahead, cheering and taking pictures. Other parents knew her, greeted her warmly. She had built a whole world for their sons while he was building his empire of empty offices and lonely nights. The team won. The boys celebrated, hugging their mother, high-fiving their teammates. Nathaniel wanted desperately to go down there, to tell them how proud he was, to be part of their joy. Instead, he waited until they left, then walked to his car alone. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "They played well today." "They were amazing," he wrote back. "Thank you for letting me see them. Same time next week if you want. I'll be there." That night, he went through the folder again, reading every letter Elena had written. "Dear Nathaniel, I'm pregnant. Please, call me, we need to talk. The doctor says it's quadruplets, I'm scared, where are you? They're boys, 4 beautiful baby boys, they look just like you. The babies are 6 months old now." Daniel rolled over first. Michael sleeps through the night. Lucas already tries to grab books. Anthony laughs at everything. Letter after letter, year after year. A story of love and loss and 4 lives he should have been part of. He drove to the estate late that night, parking outside the small house where Eleanor and the boys lived. The lights were off except for one, probably Eleanor's room. She always stayed up late, even when they were teenagers. His phone felt heavy in his hand as he typed, "I read all the letters, every single one. I know now what I threw away. Not just you, but them, a family, a life that could have been beautiful." Minutes passed. Finally, she replied, "It still could be. But not the way you're used to getting things, Nathaniel. You can't buy your way into their lives. You have to earn it. Tell me how. Come to their games, watch them grow, learn who they are before they learn who you are. Can you do that? Can you put their needs before your own?" He looked at the dark windows of the little house, imagining his son sleeping inside. "Yes," he wrote, "whatever it takes. Then maybe we can find a way forward. But slowly, on their terms, not yours." Nathaniel drove home to his empty mansion, but his heart stayed there, in that small house at the edge of his estate, where 4 boys slept unaware that their father was finally ready to be the man they deserved. For the first time in 10 years, he felt something like hope. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Every Saturday, Nathaniel sat in the back of the community center, watching his sons play basketball. Every Wednesday, he drove past their school at dismissal time, just to see them walking home with their backpacks and laughter. He learned their routines, their habits, their little differences that only a parent's eye could catch. Daniel always tied his shoes twice. Michael carried extra pencils for his brothers. Lucas read while he walked, somehow never tripping. Anthony collected interesting rocks, filling his pockets until they sagged. But watching from a distance wasn't enough anymore. He needed more. "I want to help," he told Elena one morning at the diner. "With school expenses, medical bills, anything they need." "We're doing fine," she said, refilling his coffee cup. He actually drank it now, instead of just pretending. "Elena, they're wearing hand-me-downs. Their shoes are falling apart. Let me at least—" "Fine," she cut him off. "You can set up a college fund, but nothing else. I won't have them thinking money solves everything like your father taught you." The words stung, but he knew she was right. "What about the basketball team? They need new uniforms, new equipment." "I could donate anonymously." She considered this. "Okay, but through the community center, not directly to their team, and no strings attached." That afternoon, the community center received a mysterious donation of $100,000 for youth sports programs. Nathaniel smiled when he saw the boys at their next game, wearing new jerseys, playing with new balls, but his happiness didn't last long. Walking into his office the next day, he found Victor Robertson waiting for him, his biggest competitor, and the man his father had wanted him to become. "Quite a show you're putting on, Sterling," Victor said, his smile cold. "Playing the generous benefactor. But we both know what you're really doing at that community center every weekend." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Those boys, Elena Ruiz's sons, or should I say, your sons?" Victor tossed a manila envelope on the desk. Inside were photos. Nathaniel at the basketball games, Elena at the diner, the boys playing at school. "Your father told me everything before he died. Insurance, he called it, in case you ever grew a conscience." "Get out." "Not so fast. I have a proposition. Merge your company with mine under my leadership, or these photos go to every newspaper in town. Imagine the scandal. The great Nathaniel Sterling abandoning his own children for 10 years. Nathaniel's hands shook with rage. "You're blackmailing me?" I prefer to call it negotiating. You have until Friday to decide. After Victor left, Nathaniel called Elena. We have a problem. They met at the greenhouse after the boys were in bed. Elena listened silently as he explained about Victor's threat. So what are you going to do? She asked when he finished. I don't know. If this gets out, the boys will find out the truth in the worst possible way. He paced between the flower beds. I could give him what he wants. Merge the companies, keep everything quiet, and let him control you, just like your father did. Elena shook her head. When are you going to stop letting other people decide your life? Then what? Let him publish the photos. Let everyone know what a terrible father I've been. Or, Elena said quietly, we could tell them ourselves, before someone else does. Nathaniel stopped pacing. Are you serious? They're asking more questions. About you, about their father. Maybe it's time. But I said we had to do this on their terms, and right now they need to hear the truth from us, not from some newspaper. He sat heavily on a wooden bench. How do we even begin to explain? We tell them the truth, that their father made a mistake, that he's sorry, that he wants to know them, if they'll let him. And if they hate me? Elena's face softened. They might at first, but they're good boys, Nathaniel. They have big hearts, just like their father used to. They made plans to tell the boys that weekend. But first, Nathaniel had something to do. He called Victor Robertson the next morning. The answer is no. Publish. Whatever you want. I'm done hiding. You're making a mistake, Sterling. No, my mistake was letting people like you and my father control my life. Not anymore. He hung up and called his PR team. Schedule a press conference for Monday morning. It's time to tell the truth. That Saturday, Elena gathered the boys in their small living room. They sat on the worn couch looking confused and excited. Boys, she said, her voice trembling slightly. There's someone here who needs to talk to you. Someone who has wanted to meet you for a very long time. Nathaniel walked in, his heart pounding. 4 pairs of identical green eyes, his eyes, stared up at him. Hey, Anthony said brightly. You're the man from the big house. Yes, Nathaniel smiled, fighting back tears. But I'm your father. The room went silent. Daniel's face hardened. Michael looked down at his hands. Lucas's eyes went wide with understanding. And Anthony just kept smiling. But Mom said our father was dead. Daniel said accusingly, I told you that because Elena started. Because I was a coward, Nathaniel finished. I let people tell me I couldn't be your father, and that was wrong. So wrong. And I'm here to apologize and to ask if you'll give me a chance to make it right. The boys looked at each other, having one of their silent conversations that only quadruplets could understand. Finally, Lucas spoke. Did you really not know about us? No. Not until I saw you playing soccer that day. You look just like I did at your age. Is that why you came to our basketball games? Michael asked quietly. Nathaniel's heart jumped. You saw me? We all did, Anthony said. You sat in the back and tried to hide, but we knew you were watching us. I wanted to know you, Nathaniel admitted, even if I could only watch from far away. Daniel, the oldest by 2 minutes and clearly the most angry, stood up. Why should we trust you now? You left Mom alone. You never came looking for us. You're right, Nathaniel said. I don't deserve your trust, but I'm asking for a chance to earn it. Not with money or gifts, but with time, with love. If you'll let me. The boys looked at their mother. Eleanor wiped tears from her eyes. It's your choice, my loves. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Anthony got up and walked to Nathaniel. Without hesitation, he wrapped his arms around his father's waist. I always wished you weren't dead, he whispered. One by one, Michael and Lucas joined the hug. Only Daniel remained apart, watching with mixed emotions on his face. You can't just walk in here and expect everything to be okay, he said. I know, Nathaniel replied, still holding his other sons. We have 10 years to make up for. But I'm not going anywhere this time, I promise. Daniel's lip trembled. You better not, he said. And finally, slowly, he joined his brothers. Elena watched them, her heart full of hope and fear. Tomorrow the world would know the truth. There would be reporters and questions and judgment. But for now, in this small living room, a father held his sons for the first time, and 4 boys began to learn that sometimes people we thought were gone forever find their way back home. The press conference changed everything. Reporters crowded outside the Sterling Enterprises building as Nathaniel took the podium. Elena and the boys watching from home on TV. 10 years ago, I made a terrible mistake, Nathaniel began. I let others convince me to walk away from the woman I loved and the family I could have had. I didn't know she was pregnant with my sons, quadruplets who have grown into amazing young boys without me. Camera flashes exploded as he continued. My father kept their existence from me, intercepting letters and phone calls. But that's no excuse. I should have fought harder. I should have trusted love over money. Now, I'm asking for privacy as I try to build a relationship with my children. At home, the boys watched their father defend them on national television. Their classmates would know now. Everyone would know. Mom, Daniel asked, do we have to change schools? Elena hugged him close. No, baby. Nothing has to change unless you want it to. But things did change. Reporters followed them everywhere. Other kids at school asked endless questions. Some parents stopped letting their children play with the boys as if being a Sterling was contagious. Nathaniel tried to make it easier. He hired security to keep reporters away. He met with the school principal to address privacy concerns. He even bought the house next door to Elena's and renovated it, making sure it wasn't too fancy, just comfortable enough for when the boys visited. The first visit was awkward. The boys stood in the living room, looking at the video games, books, and sports equipment Nathaniel had chosen carefully. You didn't have to buy all this, Daniel said. I wanted you to feel comfortable here, Nathaniel replied. But we can do whatever you want. Watch TV, play basketball in the backyard, just talk. Anthony solved the problem by grabbing a basketball. Can you teach us that spin move we saw you doing at the gym? Nathaniel had been practicing, watching YouTube videos to learn basketball moves. He wanted to share something with his sons. Soon, they were all in the backyard. Even Daniel joined in, though he still kept his distance. Emotionally, you're not as bad as I thought you'd be, Daniel admitted after Nathaniel showed them the move. Thanks, I think, Nathaniel laughed. Weeks passed. The boys came over after school sometimes, doing homework at the kitchen table while Nathaniel worked from home. He learned their favorite foods, their fears, their dreams. Daniel wanted to run his own business someday. Michael loved computers and could fix anything electronic. Lucas still wanted to be a doctor. And Anthony, he just wanted everyone to be happy. Elena watched it all carefully, ready to step in if things went wrong. But slowly, she saw Nathaniel, becoming the man she had fallen in love with years ago, before money and power changed him. One night after the boys went home, Nathaniel found Elena in the greenhouse. She was planting new flowers just like the day he discovered the truth. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For raising them to be such incredible people, for giving me a chance to know them, for not hating me even though you should. Eleanor stood up, wiping dirt from her hands. I did hate you for a long time, but hate is exhausting, and watching you with them now, you're trying, really trying. They make me want to be better. She smiled sadly. They have that effect on people. Elena. He stepped closer. I never stopped loving you, even when I convinced myself I had. Nathaniel, don't. I know it's too soon, maybe too late, but I needed you to know. A noise at the door made them turn. Daniel stood there, his face angry again. Is that why you came back? He demanded. To try to get Mom back. Daniel, no, Elena started. I came back for all of you, Nathaniel said honestly, because you're my family. The family I should have fought for 10 years ago. We were fine without you. Yes, you were. Your mother made sure of that. But Daniel, I'm here now. Not to change things or take over, just to love you if you'll let me. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. I heard what that man Robertson said about you on TV, that you only admitted to being our father because he was going to expose you. That's not true, Nathaniel said firmly. I admitted it because it was time, because you deserve to know the truth. How can we ever trust you? Elena touched Daniel's shoulder. Baby, sometimes people make mistakes, big ones, but they deserve A chance to make things right. He hurt you, Mom. I remember hearing you cry at night. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Her strong, protective boy had carried that pain for so long. Yes, he did, she admitted. But holding on to anger only hurts you more. Trust takes time. And it's okay if you're not ready. Daniel looked between his parents, seeing something he hadn't noticed before. The way they stood, the way they looked at each other. There was still love there, buried under years of pain. Just don't hurt her again, he finally said to Nathaniel. Or us. I won't, Nathaniel promised. I'm done running from what matters. Later that night, Elena found a letter in her mailbox. Inside was the check his father had given her all those years ago. I can't change the past, Nathaniel had written, but I can try to fix what was broken. Starting with this, tear it up, burn it. The money doesn't matter. Only our family matters now. Eleanor held the check, remembering the desperate young mother she had been, taking money she didn't want because her babies needed food and clothes. She walked to the fireplace and lit the check on fire, watching the past burn away. Outside, the lights were on in Nathaniel's house next door. She could see him through the window, sitting with Michael, helping with a computer project. Her son was smiling, teaching his father something new. Maybe, she thought, some broken things could be fixed after all. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to build something new from the pieces. Victor Robertson wasn't done causing trouble. He called an emergency meeting of Sterling Enterprises' board of directors, presenting evidence that Nathaniel was unfit to lead the company. A man who abandoned his own children can't be trusted with stockholders' money, Victor argued, and now he's letting them influence company decisions. It was true. Nathaniel had cancelled a major development project after the boys showed him how it would destroy their favorite park. He'd started a scholarship program for underprivileged kids after learning how Elena had struggled to give the boys opportunities. The board seemed uncertain. Nathaniel's public image had actually improved since admitting to his past mistakes. People respected his honesty and his efforts to make things right, but Victor had one more card to play. I've discovered something else, he announced. The money Richard Sterling paid Elena Ruiz? It came from company funds, illegally, and Nathaniel knew about it. Nathaniel stood up so fast his chair fell over. That's a lie. Is it? Then explain. These documents. The papers looked real. Account numbers, signatures, dates, all perfect, all fake. My father must have done this without my knowledge, Nathaniel said. I never knew about the money until recently. Convenient excuse, Victor smiled. Blame the dead man. The board called for an investigation. Nathaniel was suspended pending the results. That night he had to tell Elena and the boys. They're trying to take the company? Lucas asked. Can they do that? Not if I can prove the documents are fake, Nathaniel replied. But it'll take time. Daniel, who had slowly been warming up to his father, looked worried. What happens if you can't prove it? Then I lose the company. But that's not what matters most to me anymore. What does matter? Michael asked quietly. Nathaniel looked at his family. Eleanor standing strong despite her concern, the boys watching him with those matching green eyes. You do, all of you. I spent years choosing money over love. I won't make that mistake again. Anthony hugged him hard. We'll help you fight the bad man. No, Elena said firmly. This isn't your fight, boys. You focus on school and being kids. Let your father handle this. But the boys had other ideas. That weekend, while helping Michael clean his computer room, Nathaniel noticed something on one of the screens. What's this? Michael looked embarrassed. I might have hacked into some old company records. You what? I'm really good with computers, Michael shrugged. And I found something weird. Those documents Mr. Robertson showed, the metadata shows, they were created last month, not 10 years ago. Nathaniel stared at his son in amazement. You found proof they're fake? Better, Lucas said, walking in. I recorded Mr. Robertson talking to his assistant about making the documents. He didn't notice me in the library when he came to visit the board. You boys shouldn't be involved. In this, Nathaniel protested. We're Sterling's too, Daniel said from the doorway, even if we just found out about it. And Sterlings stick together. Elena appeared behind Daniel, looking both proud and worried. They get their stubbornness from both of us, you know. With Michael's evidence and Lucas's recording, The truth came out. Victor Robertson was arrested for fraud. The board apologized to Nathaniel. The company stock actually went up as people responded to the story of a father and his sons working together, but the real victory happened at home. "I signed us up for the father-son baseball league," Daniel told Nathaniel one evening, "if you want to play." "Really?" Nathaniel's heart soared. Daniel had been the hardest to win over. "Yeah, but you better practice. We're pretty good." "I'll practice every day." Elena watched from the porch as Nathaniel and the boys played catch in the backyard. They weren't perfect. Daniel still had moments of anger. There were still awkward silences and uncertain moments, but they were healing, growing, becoming a real family. Later, Nathaniel found Elena in the greenhouse again, their special place. "The boys told me what they did," she said. "Helping you, save the company. They're amazing, smart, brave, loyal, just like their father. The real you, not the man your father tried to make you be." Nathaniel touched a rose petal gently. "I keep thinking about that day I left. If I had just trusted my heart instead of my father's threats." "We can't change the past," Elena reminded him. "But the future, that's still unwritten." He looked at her, really looked at her. She was more beautiful now than when they were young, stronger, wiser. "Elena, don't," she whispered. "Not yet. Let's focus on the boys." But her eyes said, "Not yet," instead of never, and that was enough to give him hope. Through the greenhouse windows, they could see their sons playing basketball. 4 boys who had brought them back together. 4 reasons to be better. 4 chances to get things right. The past might have been full of mistakes, but the future was full of possibilities. The father-son baseball league brought unexpected challenges. Every Saturday morning, Nathaniel and the boys played against other families, but having quadruplets on one team caused problems. "It's not fair," other parents complained. "They have an unfair advantage." "We can split up," Daniel offered. "Play on different teams." "No," Nathaniel said firmly. "We play together or not at all." It was the first time he had stood up for them publicly, choosing his sons over what others thought. The boys noticed. The complaints stopped when people saw how Nathaniel coached not just his own sons, but any kid who needed help. He taught them, all to pitch, to catch, to work together. Soon other parents were thanking him for making their children feel included. One Saturday, Eleanor came to watch them play. She sat in the bleachers, remembering all the games she had watched alone. Now Nathaniel was there, cheering just as loudly as she did. "They look happy," a voice said beside her. She turned to see Maria, her best friend since high school. "They are happy," Elena admitted. "He's really trying." "And what about you?" Maria asked. "I see the way you look at him. It's complicated. Life's complicated. Love shouldn't be." On the field, Nathaniel was showing Anthony how to hold the bat properly. His hands were gentle, his voice patient. So different from the ambitious young man who had chosen money over love. After the game, they all went for ice cream, a new tradition. The boys argued playfully about who had made the best play. "Mom, you should come to all our games," Anthony said, ice cream dripping down his chin. "Yeah," Michael agreed. "Dad plays better when you're watching." Eleanor blushed. Nathaniel nearly choked on his ice cream. "Speaking of games," Lucas said quickly, "there's a father-son dance at school next month." The other boys got quiet. They had always skipped these events before. Would you want to go?" Nathaniel asked carefully. "Only if you want to," Daniel added, trying to sound casual. "I want to," Nathaniel said. "More than anything." That night, Elena helped the boys try on their old suits. None of them fit anymore, they're growing so fast, she sighed. The next day, Nathaniel took them shopping for new suits. Not at the expensive stores he usually visited, but at the department store where Eleanor always shopped. He was learning. "How do I look?" Anthony spun around in his new suit. "Like a proper Sterling," Nathaniel smiled. "Mom says we're Ruiz Sterlings," Michael corrected. "Even better." The night of the dance, Elena helped the boys get ready at Nathaniel's house. She fixed their ties while he polished their shoes. "We look like penguins," Anthony giggled. "Very handsome penguins," Eleanor said, straightening Daniel's collar. Nathaniel watched her with their sons, his heart aching with love for all of them. She had done such a wonderful job raising them alone. Now they were a team, co-parents working together. At the dance, other fathers stared as Nathaniel Sterling walked in with 4 identical boys. But the boys didn't notice. They were too busy teaching their father the latest dance moves. "Dad, you're doing it wrong," Lucas laughed. "Show me again," Nathaniel said, trying to follow Anthony's wild movements. They took turns dancing with him, each boy getting special time with their father. Even Daniel let loose, forgetting to be the serious oldest brother for a while. Elena waited up for them sitting on her porch. When they came home, the boys were tired but happy. "Mom, Dad can't dance at all," Anthony announced. "I remember," she said softly. Their eyes met over the boys' heads, both remembering their own school dance so many years ago. Their first date, their first kiss. "Okay, bedtime," Elena said quickly. "School tomorrow." The boys hugged their father goodnight. It was natural now, not awkward like the first times. "Thank you," Daniel said quietly before following his brothers, "for coming tonight." Nathaniel watched them go into their house, his heart full. "They had fun," Eleanor said. "I did too, more than I've ever had at any business dinner or charity gala." She started to go inside, but he caught her hand. "Eleanor, wait." The touch sent electricity through. "Both of them. Dance with me?" he asked softly. "Just once, for old times." "There's no music." He pulled out his phone, played their old song, the one they had danced to at that long-ago school dance. Under the porch light, they swayed together. Not touching except for their hands, but it was enough. "I miss you," he whispered. "I'm right here. You know what I mean." She pulled away gently. "Nathaniel, I know. The boys come first, but Elena, my heart never left this porch, never left. You." From an upstairs window, 4 faces quickly ducked out of sight. The boys had been watching, hoping. "Did you see that?" Anthony whispered excitedly. "They danced." "Don't get your hopes up," Daniel warned, but he was smiling too. On the porch, Elena and Nathaniel stood in the moonlight, both aware that their sons were watching, both pretending not to know. "Good night, Nathaniel," Elena said softly. "Good night, Elena." He walked next door to his empty house, remembering how she felt in his arms. Progress was slow, but it was happening. With the boys. With Eleanor. With becoming the man he should have been all along. Inside their house, Eleanor touched her hand where he had held it. The past wasn't dead after all. It was just waiting for the right moment to bloom again, like the roses in her greenhouse. Change came suddenly one morning when Lucas fell at baseball practice. One moment he was running to catch a ball, the next he was on the ground, not moving. "Lucas!" Nathaniel reached him first, heart pounding. "Son, can you hear me?" The other boys crowded around their brother. Elena, who had been watching from the bleachers, ran onto the field. "He's breathing," Nathaniel said, "but he's burning up." The ambulance came quickly. At the hospital, doctors discovered Lucas had been hiding symptoms for days: fever, headaches, dizziness. "Meningitis," the doctor told them. "We caught it early, but he'll need to stay in the hospital for treatment." Elena stayed by Lucas's bedside, refusing to leave. Nathaniel took the other boys home, but brought them back every day after school. "I'm scared," Anthony whispered to his father one night as they left the hospital. Nathaniel hugged him close. "Your brother is strong, like your mother." "Like you too," Michael said. "That's what Mom always told us, even before we knew you. That we got our strength from both of you." In Lucas's hospital room, Elena dozed in an uncomfortable chair. She woke to find Nathaniel placing a blanket over her shoulders. "The boys?" she asked sleepily. "At home with Maria. Get some rest. I'll watch him." She started to protest, but was too tired. For the first time in 10 years, she let herself lean on someone else. Lucas improved slowly. During his recovery, something changed in the family dynamic. The crisis had brought them closer, erasing the last walls between them. One evening, Elena found Nathaniel in Lucas's room, reading to him from a medical textbook. "He still wants to be a doctor," Nathaniel smiled. "Even more now," Lucas said weakly. "I want to help people like the doctors helped me." Elena watched them together, her son and his father, sharing dreams and plans. The sight made her heart ache in a way that wasn't entirely painful. When Lucas came home, the boys insisted on having a family dinner to celebrate. Not at Nathaniel's house or Eleanor's, but in the greenhouse, their special place. They set up a table among the flowers. Anthony decorated with fairy lights. Michael rigged up speakers for music. Daniel and Nathaniel cooked together, a sight that would have seemed impossible months ago. "This is perfect," Lucas said, looking around at his family. Elena noticed how naturally they all moved together now. The awkwardness was gone. Even Daniel smiled easily at his father. After dinner, the boys went to watch a movie, leaving their parents alone in the greenhouse. "Thank you," Elena said softly. "For what?" "For being here. For loving them the way they deserve." "I love all of you," Nathaniel said. "I never stopped." This time, when he reached for her hand, I didn't pull away. "I was so angry for so long," she admitted. "But watching you with them, seeing how hard you're trying..." "Elena." He touched her cheek gently. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but if you could find it in your heart..." She kissed him, softly, tentatively, like the first time in this very greenhouse all those years ago. From the house came the sound of cheering. They broke apart to see 4 faces pressed against the greenhouse windows. "Finally," Anthony shouted. "Took you long enough," Michael grinned. "Does this mean we're going to be a real family now?" Lucas asked. "We already are," Daniel said, surprising everyone. "We just needed time to figure it out." Eleanor looked at Nathaniel, seeing the boy she had loved and the man he had become. "Your father's right," she told the boys. "We are a family. Different from most, maybe, but real and strong. And together," Nathaniel added, holding her close. Later, after the boys were asleep, Elena and Nathaniel sat on her porch swing. "They're going to expect things now," she warned. "They'll want us to be together?" He smiled. "Is that such a bad thing?" "It's not that simple." "Maybe it is. Maybe we've made it complicated by fighting what's always been true." She rested, her head on his shoulder, fitting there like she had never left. "One day at a time," she said. "One day at a time," he agreed. Above them, stars twinkled like Anthony's fairy lights. Inside, their sons slept peacefully, knowing their family was finally whole. Sometimes love takes the long way home, but it finds its way back eventually. Thanksgiving approached, bringing new challenges. The boys wanted both parents at dinner, but neither house felt right for their first real holiday as a family. "What about the main house?" Anthony suggested. "The big one?" Everyone got quiet. The mansion had been empty since Nathaniel's father died. None of them had been inside since the day Nathaniel left Elena. "We could make new memories there," Lucas said carefully. "Better ones." Elena saw how much it meant to the boys. "If your father agrees..." "Are you sure?" Nathaniel asked her privately. "That house holds a lot of pain. Maybe it's time to heal that too." The boys helped clean and decorate. They turned the cold mansion into something warm and welcoming. Family photos appeared on walls that had only held stern portraits of past Sterlings. The kitchen, once barely used, filled with the smell of Elena's cooking. "Mom," Daniel called from the study. "Look what we found." In a drawer hidden under old papers was a stack of photos. Young Eleanor and Nathaniel smiling and in love. Their secret dates in the greenhouse, the last summer before everything fell apart. "You were so happy," Michael said softly. "We were," Elena admitted. "And maybe we can be again, differently, but just as real." Thanksgiving morning, Elena woke early to start cooking. She found Nathaniel already in the kitchen. "I've been watching cooking videos," he explained sheepishly. "I want to help." They worked together, moving around each other like they'd done it forever. When Elena reached for something high, Nathaniel steadied her waist. When he struggled with a recipe, she guided his hands. The boys watched from the doorway, grinning. "They're like teenagers," Anthony whispered. "Better," Daniel said. "They're like Mom and Dad." The dinner was perfect. Not because everything was cooked right, Nathaniel burned the rolls, but because they were together. "I'm thankful for second chances," Nathaniel said, when they shared what they were grateful for. "For the family I almost lost, and for their forgiveness." "I'm thankful for truth," Elena added, Even when it comes late, it can still set things right. I'm thankful we're all here, Anthony said. Me too, echoed Michael and Lucas. Everyone looked at Daniel. The oldest, the protector, the one who had held onto anger longest. I'm thankful, he said slowly, that love is stronger than mistakes. That family means never giving up on each other. After dinner, they gathered in the living room. Anthony played piano, a new hobby Nathaniel was paying for lessons for. Michael showed them his latest computer game design. Lucas talked about medical school dreams. Daniel discussed business ideas with his father. Elena watched them all, her heart full. This was what she had wanted for her boys all along. Not money or a mansion, but a father who loved them. A complete family. Later, she found Nathaniel in his father's old study. I've been thinking, he said. This house, it's too big for just me. But maybe if you and the boys wanted, are you asking us to move in? Only if you're ready. We could renovate, make it ours instead of my father's. Give the boys more space, make it a real home. Eleanor looked around the study. Once this room had terrified her. Richard Sterling had sat behind that desk and told her she wasn't good enough. For his son. Now she saw possibility. The desk could be moved, windows could be added, light could replace shadows. The boys would love it, she said carefully. And you? She touched his face gently. I love you. I never stopped. But this has to be about more than us. It is. It's about family. About making this place what it should have been all along. A home filled with love instead of power games and manipulation. From the living room came the sound of laughter. Their sons, happy and whole. Yes, Elena decided. Yes to making this our home. Yes to being a family. Yes to everything. He kissed her, and this time neither of them held back. Gross, Anthony said from the doorway, but he was smiling. The other boys appeared behind him. Does this mean we're moving in? Lucas asked hopefully. If you want to, Elena said. All of us? Michael checked. All of us, Nathaniel confirmed. Daniel stepped forward. Then we better start planning. This place needs serious updates. They gathered around the desk, not Richard Sterling's desk anymore, but their families, planning, dreaming, laughing. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall. Inside, in a house that had once seen so much pain, love bloomed like Eleanor's roses in spring. Sometimes home isn't a place. Sometimes it's the people who make a house into something more, something magical, something real. Spring came to Sterling Manor, bringing change with it. The renovation transformed the old mansion into a true family home. Eleanor's touches softened the formal rooms. The boys' laughter echoed through halls that had once been silent. The greenhouse expanded, now twice its original size. Eleanor's roses bloomed alongside new plants the boys helped choose. Even Nathaniel learned to garden, though he mostly just carried heavy things and followed Elena's instructions. You've changed this place, Victor Robertson said during a surprise visit. It's not the Sterling estate anymore. You're right, Nathaniel agreed. It's the Ruiz Sterling home now, and you're not welcome here. Victor looked around at the family. Photos, the children's artwork, the signs of life everywhere. You gave up everything your father built. No, Nathaniel said firmly. I built something better, something real. He watched Victor leave, knowing his father would have been disappointed in his choices. But for the first time, that didn't matter. Inside, the boys were doing homework at the kitchen table while Elena made dinner. Normal family things that once seemed impossible. Dad, Lucas called, can you help me with this business math problem? After, he helps me with my computer setup, Michael added. And watches my new basketball moves, Anthony chimed in. And reviews my startup idea, Daniel finished. Nathaniel looked at Elena, overwhelmed with love for their family. I think Dad needs to clone himself. No need, she smiled. We already did that 4 times. The boys groaned at the bad joke, but they were smiling too. That weekend, they held a housewarming party. Not a formal Sterling event, but a real family gathering. Eleanor's friends from the diner came, the boys' teachers and coaches, people who had been part of their lives before money and status mattered. Remember when you used to serve me coffee? Nathaniel teased Elena. Remember when you couldn't tell the boys apart? She teased back. I still mix them up sometimes, he admitted, but don't tell them that. Your secret's safe with me." They watched their sons playing basketball with their friends, 4 identical faces but such different personalities. Daniel, the leader, Michael, the thinker, Lucas, the healer, Anthony, the joy bringer. "Marry me," Nathaniel said suddenly. Elena turned to him, surprised. "What? Marry me? Not because of the boys or because it's expected. Marry me because I love you, because I never stopped loving you, because these past months have shown me that everything I thought was important means nothing. Without you." The boys appeared as if by magic. "Say yes, Mom," Anthony pleaded. "We've been planning this for weeks," Michael admitted. Lucas held out a ring, Eleanor's grandmother's ring, the one she thought was lost. "I found it in Dad's old study," Daniel explained. "He kept it all these years." Elena looked at the ring, then at her family, the 4 sons who were her world, and the man who had found his way back to them. "Yes," she said simply. The wedding was nothing like the society event it would have been years ago. They held it in the greenhouse, surrounded by roses and memories. The boys walked Elena down the aisle together. "I've loved you since we were kids," Nathaniel said in his vows. "Through every mistake, every wrong turn, every lost year, and I'll love you for the rest of our lives." "Love finds its way home," Eleanor replied. "Sometimes it takes the long road, but it gets there eventually." Anthony cried happy tears. Michael pretended not to. Lucas hugged everyone. And Daniel? Daniel smiled like the sun coming out after rain. Later, at the reception, Elena danced with each of her sons before joining Nathaniel. "Happy?" he asked, holding her close. "Complete," she answered. They had come full circle back to the greenhouse where their story began. But this time, they weren't teenagers with dreams. They were parents with 4 amazing sons, partners who had learned that love is stronger than pride or fear or time itself. The boys joined them on the dance floor, turning the elegant first dance into a family group hug. "Gross," Anthony said, but he was crying again. "Best family ever," Michael declared. "Even if Dad can't dance," Lucas laughed. "Or garden," Daniel added. "Or cook," they all said together. Nathaniel looked at his family, really his now in every way that mattered. "I may not be perfect," he said, "but I'm perfectly happy." Elena kissed him, ignoring the boys' theatrical groans. "Sometimes love takes detours. Sometimes it gets lost along the way. But if you're lucky, if you're blessed, it finds its way back. And when it does, you hold on tight and never let go again." In the garden of Sterling Manor, no, of the Ruiz Sterling home, 4 boys who were mirrors of their father but had their mother's heart watched their parents dance. And love, which had waited so patiently for 10 years, bloomed again like Elena's roses in spring the end.